By the time you rock up to work, your friends, your colleagues, and your boss will be amazed at how much energy you have. They'll literally be asking you, what are you taking? Is it prescription grade? And is it legal? So there's something about dark winter mornings that just make us feel sluggish. Unless you live literally on the equator, you might be familiar with that feeling of waking up, drawing the curtains, and it looking like this outside. I've been struggling with this and have always felt that although in summer, whilst I've been able to get up and often been able to be pretty productive in the mornings, like going for a run or going to the gym, but in winter, I've never really felt in control of my mornings, and I've always felt like I'm starting the day off on the wrong foot. But then I started to wonder, what if I could engineer my mornings to stop being a slave to the winter morning darkness and become instantly energized, focused, and alert, and also tick off my main task for the day before most people have gotten out of bed. So here is my 60-second miracle morning wake-up routine for when it's dark outside. Okay, so the first problem I realized I was facing when I was waking up each morning was that although I was setting an alarm, I'd usually roll over in bed, fumble around with my hand a bit, and then slap the silence or snooze button. It was that easy. Then I'd either just lie awake in bed, waiting until the last minute when I just really had to get out of bed, or just fall back asleep until I woke in a panic that I was probably going to be late for work, usually having to skip breakfast or dashing out of the door in a frenzy. Either way, I'd be starting off the day on the wrong foot, one step behind. So I took a bit of advice from James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, who says that one of the key pillars in forming a habit is to make it easy. So I thought, all right, rolling over in bed and silencing my alarm is a bad habit. I want to stop it. So let's flip that concept on its head and make it as hard as possible to silence my alarm and stay in bed. To do this, I decided to physically move my alarm to another room. Now each morning I'd be forced out of bed, walking about 15 or 20 meters over to the kitchen to turn off my alarm. Doing this forced me out of bed, activating my musculoskeletal system and engaging stretch receptors in my muscles, also engaging my brain for movement and coordination in a way that it just hadn't been activated before. This was kickstarting my day in a way that I just hadn't been used to. So a few objections to this might be if you sleep with a bed partner and they are just not on board with you setting an alarm in a different room, listening to this alarm going off before you turn it off. Now, there are some nifty alternatives on the market that will force you out of bed in a similar way, just slightly less disruptively. There are alarms that you can buy that will literally fly or bounce or wheel themselves across your room whilst beeping or buzzing or generally being annoying, and basically get you to get up and chase them around the room until you turn them off. These are okay, maybe a little gimmicky for some people, so if you want to stick with your phone as an alarm, which many of you might want to, there are some apps that you can download that when they go off, they ask you to take a picture or scan a barcode of a pre-selected object in a different room. I just love how clever this technology can be, and again, the point is to kickstart that motion out of bed. Fortunately for me, my bed partner is my wife, and she sleeps like a log, and I tend to wake up much more easily to even a quiet alarm going off in a different room, so I stuck with keeping my phone in the kitchen. Walking to the kitchen also bought me a bit more time, so that by the time I got to my phone, I was able to consider, okay, I'm out of bed now. What do I really want to do? Ideally, that would be the start of my day of productivity, but it wasn't that simple. The problem was that desire to get back into bed was just still too tempting. Look, I'm human too, and for me, that temptation to just get back into my warm, cozy bed was still pretty significant. I needed a way of staying out of bed and keeping up the momentum. So I used this technique borrowed from the behavioral sciences called temptation bundling. It basically says that if you can bundle something enjoyable with that habit that you're trying to build, you're much more likely to stick with it. So for me, this meant that if I could find something that I could genuinely get excited about, a treat of some sort, it would be enough to swing the balance of things in favor of me carrying on with my morning. So for me, and this may seem ridiculous and really sad and pathetic, but this was my YouTube watch later video list. So during the week, I'll often see YouTube videos that I like the look of, but I just don't have time to watch there and then. So what I'll do is I'll add them to my watch later list, and they tend to just sit there. I found that this was actually a really good time each morning after having just forced myself out of bed to treat myself to watching something I actually wanted to watch. I'd move over to the front room, make myself a cup of coffee, and sit down. For you, your treat might be something totally different. It might be listening to some music, watching a TV show, show. It might even be doing something creative that you enjoy. Right, so I was now successfully out of bed and staying out of bed. But pretty quickly, I realized that I was pretty much wasting time each morning just watching these YouTube videos. You are probably a much superior human being to me, so you might actually be able to exercise some self-control. But for me, I'd be about 10 videos in, and again, the morning would just have crept up on me and I'd be rushing around to get ready for the day ahead. The next step for me was forcing myself into some mode of action where I was actually doing something productive, something that future me would have been really proud of having done. And this was the final step, finding a quick win task of value. Something I needed to do that day, but also something that felt achievable and wouldn't feel like a massive undertaking. For me, I settled on walking the dog. This had a number of benefits. It didn't have to be super long, about 15 or 20 minutes, before he then went for a longer walk later in the dog. I know I'm gonna get a flood of comments if I don't say that, saying, you know, you're neglecting your dog. He has a good amount of walks in the daytime, guys, he's fine. This meant that me watching my pretty endless YouTube playlist was time bound and it couldn't go on forever. It also meant that I was getting outside, my legs were moving, my cardio and respiratory systems were engaged as I was breathing in the cool, fresh air from outside. So by the time I got back inside from the walk, I really did feel energized. And no, the sun had still not come up, and I'd done something of value that I needed to do anyway. And this bundling allowed me to build a habit I needed to do onto the activity that I actually liked doing. I kind of think of this as like a temptation sandwich, really. So the top layer of this sandwich is the habit of actually getting out of bed. And like we've said, it's attached to this middle layer, the filling or the treat, which is in my case, watching YouTube videos. The great thing about the treat is it then doubles up as an anchor for you to then do something of value. That's your quick win task, which meant that I could enjoy my treat only if I bundled it together with the quick win of walking the dog. And the three layers of this temptation sandwich that happen in quick succession, really, over the course of about 60 seconds or less, is exactly how I've been able to go from feeling really fatigued each morning to really quite energized and in control of my mornings. But there was actually one more thing that happened that I was not expecting. Hey, a really quick one to say that if you're enjoying this video and you're getting something from it, I'd be grateful if you could hit the like button, and if you want, hit subscribe as well. It really does help me to make and improve videos like this. You can also let me know in the comment section down below what else might be interesting to talk about on the subject of getting better sleep and daytime energy and focus. So something else started to happen. As I started to build this temptation sandwich, each time I'd finish this quick routine, I genuinely begin to feel deep down that today was going to be a good day. I'd sit down after my quick win of walking the dog and look at my schedule for the day ahead. I use Google Calendar for my daily schedule, but I've also built a to-do list in Notion, which maybe I'll make a video on at some point if you're interested. And I'd scroll down to this section that I've made called Eat That Frog. Okay, so Eat That Frog is a concept that's been made famous by Brian Tracy, who has a book called Eat That Frog. It was inspired by a quote supposedly by Mark Twain, who said, "If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first." Now, what on earth do frogs have to do with feeling energized on a dark winter morning? Well, the frog is the task on your to-do list that you least want to do, but is often the most important. Brian Tracy suggests starting the day with the most important task that you are dreading. He says by doing this, you'll have conquered your day before most people have even begun theirs. And the reason that I suggest doing this off the back of the 3-step temptation sandwich that we've just talked about is that it's really a matter of momentum. You see, after walking the dog, I'd be on a roll. I'd feel totally capable of either completing or making a massive dent in my biggest task of the day. What's more is that everything else you do that day will likely feel much more simple. But even if you do nothing else that day, by the time you rock up to work, either virtually or in person, your friends, your colleagues, and your boss will be amazed at how much energy you have. They'll literally be asking you, what are you taking? Is it prescription grade, and is it legal? What they won't know is that by completely naturally harnessing your body's systems, you've also ticked off the biggest task on your to-do list before they've even had their first coffee of the day. Quite honestly, this has been a game changer for me on dark winter mornings. Although it can literally be a 60-second routine, it's not the easiest thing to build in the world. But I encourage you to really think about how those 3 steps can apply to you. It's a very personal thing, but try and figure out an activity to force yourself out of bed, a treat to keep you out of bed, And that doubles up as a temptation bundle with a quick win, allowing you to build a productive momentum for the day and even eat your frog. Here's the great thing. Over time, you can probably ditch your alarm clock. Your body will naturally start to feel like it's just the right thing to do to wake up each day at the same time, even without that light cue. But one thing we haven't really touched on is actually using artificial light to your advantage. If you're interested in how you can use lights to boost your energy for the day ahead, including what you need to look out for before buying one of these wake-up lights, you might want to take a look here. As I hope that this community of sleep warriors grows, I'm genuinely excited to hear from you guys on whether any of these techniques have been helpful for you and how you're putting them into practice in your own day-to-day lives. So leave a comment, and if you want to be the first to see when that next video drops, then hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And until next time, I love you guys. Bye.